1st April, 1982. In a city in India, Mumbai, in a housing complex, there was a lot of merriment and excitement around April Fool's Day. Children shrieking with laughter as they pranked their friends. Other kids running around, screaming, trying to get one back at the other. And mothers yelling out to their kids to come back home because it was exam time in Mumbai. Yet, for one 8-year-old girl, there was silence. She had just been told that the woman who loved her unconditionally, the woman who was supposed to be there to support her, to look after her, had passed away. Life had placed the worst joke on her, one she would never recover from. She was now a motherless daughter, and nothing had prepared her for that. Have you ever felt so different, like you just don't fit in, that nobody could understand what you're going through? Have you ever felt like if people knew what you were thinking, they just wouldn't accept you? Or have you been with a lot of people who love and support you, but you just feel so alone, like they just don't get you? In my work as a mindset coach, I'm privy to a lot of people's personal stories, stories they don't share with anyone. Like my client, who's a social butterfly. You see her on all the social media platforms, at the latest and greatest events, all the happening places. And yet she came to me because she suffered from social anxiety. All she wanted was some time by herself to re-energize, just with her books and her pets. But she was so afraid that if people knew that's what she wanted, she'd just be left out. And she'd have no one to hang out with. No one would understand. Belonging. The Cambridge Dictionary defines belonging as being happy or comfortable in a particular group because you have a good relationship with members of that group, because they welcome you and accept you. Belonging is a social need. For this 8-year-old motherless daughter, life continued to play jokes on her. When she turned 12, her father passed away, and now she was a parentless child. She then went to boarding school, and she made some great relationships. She got a lot of love, affection, acceptance, but she still felt that constant pain, that pain of being different and just not fitting in. And then it was like her body decided to get in on the joke, because from an average height girl, she suddenly metamorphosized into a giant giraffe. And she stood out, and she couldn't fit in. And she wondered, why me? Why me? Why are all these things happening to me? What have I done? And today, that 8-year-old motherless daughter who then became a parentless child, then the giraffe, stands here in front of you to tell you how she learned to fit in, how she got that sense of belonging that nobody could take away from her. She learned that belonging was being happy and comfortable within herself. She learned belonging was having a good relationship with herself. And she learned belonging was accepting herself. Belonging was longing to be me. But who am I? Am I those voices in my head? Am I the nice, kind one or the mean one? Am I the supportive one or the one who's constantly berating me, telling me all the things that I'm doing wrong, constantly judging me? Or am I who people told me I was? You're too bossy. You're a leader. You're aggressive. You're passionate. You're too loud. You're expressive. You're unpredictable. You're spontaneous. You're temperamental. You're creative. You are disobedient. You're obedient. Okay, no one ever told me that. Who are we? You step into a room and everybody has a different idea of who you are. According to Shahram Hashmat, the author of Science of Choice, he says few people choose our identity. We simply internalize the values of our parents or dominant culture. And most often, those values are not in alignment with who we truly are. And so we live an unfulfilled life. You choose your identity? Your identity is a choice? Wow, the first time I heard that at a Tony Robbins seminar, Total Success Seminar. Tony Robbins is a well-known coach. He trains presidents, celebrities, sports personalities, and he taught me that yes, your identity is a choice. We shape our identities based on the people around us, people's appreciation that we want, people's attention that we want. We shape our identities based on what we like or what we don't like. I learned that your identity is like a dog. You name it, you train it, and when you call, it comes. Wow, it absolutely blew my mind. In my work in media, when I worked as a programming head in a radio station, I learned that in media, repetition builds reputation. The more you hear something, the more it becomes true for you. So, do you all know what's the most widely used stone on an engagement ring? Diamond. Do you know how it became so widely used? In 1947, a copywriter created an ad about diamonds being forever, and it was for De Beers because they wanted to promote the brand and they wanted to increase sales because they had dropped during the Great Depression. And sales skyrocketed. And now, 85 to 90% of engagement rings have diamonds on it. Somebody told us it is forever. Somebody told us what's the size of a ring. And they repeated it often enough and it became gospel truth for most people. That's right. Repetition builds reputation. Whatever you say over and over to yourself, about yourself, to others, becomes truth. So if you believe you can, you can. If you believe you can't, you can't. If you believe you can change, you can. If you believe you can't change, you can. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. Jim was a little boy who had learning difficulties. He had a severe brain injury, which made remembering and learning really difficult for him. Today, Jim is the CEO of Quick Learning and is called the #1 brain coach. He was the boy who was called the boy with the broken brain. And today, he teaches CEOs, astronauts, celebrities like Will Smith how to maximize their potential and be limitless. And Jim says, when you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. So when I tell people this, they look at me with healthy skepticism. But when I show them, then they believe. So I invite you to try along with me if you can, if you have enough space, to put your hand out. I mean, if you knock somebody out, that's on you. But you can put your hand out and just say, I am strong. 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 Do you notice what happens to your muscle? It gets stronger. And now you can shake that hand off and do the same thing again. Go. I am weak. 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 How many of you notice that your hand actually starts to drop? Your mind believes what you tell it. It does not even have to be true. The more you say it, the more it becomes true for you. And as I learned this, I learned that we have a choice. We have a choice about what we say to ourselves. We can change things by the way we look at them. Because often we can't change a situation, but you can change the way you look at them. And when you change the way you look at them, you change the things you look at. And so from then onwards, I thought, instead of thinking of myself as a parentless child, how could I parent myself? What does one want from a parent? Unconditional love, support, nurturing, accountability? No, not really. That's the mother in me talking. But that's what we want, and I could do that for myself. If I can do that for myself, I can change. And that is really empowering. You know, we want people to accept us all the time. But do we accept ourselves? When I ask people, and I ask you too, can you think of 2 things you love about yourself? How many of you can immediately think of 2 things you love about yourself? No many hands up? I'm not going to ask you what they are. How many of you can think of 2 things you don't like about yourself? That's right. So, you know, my client, who was the social butterfly, I asked her, I said, what do you like about yourself? And she thought, and she thought, and then she got a bit embarrassed, and she kept thinking. I was like, it's okay. And she said, I'm a good friend. I'm loyal to people I love. And I said to her, are you a good friend to yourself? Are you loyal to yourself? Is your love unconditional to yourself? And that's when the tears started. You know, we want to be something for others, but we're not willing to be it to ourselves. We're not willing to work on that relationship with ourselves. You know, we find it so easy to focus on our weaknesses. We don't look at our strengths. Most people don't even acknowledge their strengths. They don't even know what they're good at, but they can tell you straight off what they're bad at. You don't get great at focusing on your weaknesses. You get great at focusing on your strength and plugging your weakness. And so as I learned these lessons, I began to focus on what's good in me. You know, as somebody said, and is often misattributed to Einstein, but if everyone is a genius, but if a fish judged itself on its ability to climb a tree, it would spend its whole life thinking it's stupid. And so I started to look at what was good in me. And the more I looked at what was good in me, the better I felt and the better I did. Instead of thinking about how I was different, I started to look at how I was the same or unique. Instead of, questioning my background, I started to think about how did it give me the strength, the understanding that helps me do the work I do today. Instead of being ashamed about my size, my height, and trying to make myself small, I stood tall. Because guess what? Actually, the view is much better from up here. And with the virus, the air too. And again, my client, the social butterfly, when she finally took the courage and had the courage to say, this is okay, and started to tell people about how she really felt, suddenly the floodgates opened, she said to me. People felt, it was almost like she had given people permission to talk about their own struggles. And of course, there were a lot of other people who went, oh my God, she just wants some attention. And that's okay, and they went their way. But the people who were her people stayed and created beautiful relationships. So ultimately, belonging is just being okay with who you are. It's an inside job. Once we know who we are, we attract the people who are meant for us. And as repetition builds reputation, and the more you hear something, the more it becomes true for you, I have a whole list of songs to remind myself every day that, you know what, I'm okay, I'm enough, I'm worthy, and I encourage all of you to listen to things that make you feel that, to, quieten that voice in your head that is not your friend. And one of my favorite songs is called I Am Enough by Daphne Willis. And so when that voice in my head goes, who do you think you are? I'm enough. Do you have anything important to say? I am enough just as I am. Do you think you're worthy of being on this stage? I am enough just as I am. Feel right at home anywhere that I stand. Hold out my heart in the palm of my hand, and I live my life like nobody can. I'm enough for the laughter, the joys that I'm after, enough for the wildest, or for my wildest dreams. Because every flaw, from my toe to my jaw, is exactly where it's meant to be. And I know that I have something to say, and I'm going to remind myself every day, I am enough. Thank you.